Okay, next item on our agenda. Board of Selectmen to discuss options and to consider voting on recommendations relating to OPEB. And before I open up the discussion, I would just like to frame this issue with some background information. The OPEB discussion has been an ongoing dialogue in this community for the past 2 years, with extensive input from our health insurance consultant, our actuary, our Labour Council, and our citizens. I would like to preface this evening's discussion by providing the following historical background pertaining to the OPEB dialogue. The town's actuarial consultant, Siegel Consulting, presented an OPEB evaluation to the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the School Committee on June 2nd, 2014. This led to the creation of an OPEB subcommittee who worked almost 5 months to prepare a preliminary report. This committee released their report in November 2014 and recommended that an OPEB advisory committee be formed to study this issue in depth. This group was formed in June 2015 under the chairmanship of Michael Morris Sr. The members met over 20 times in public session and solicited public input for the majority of their meetings. They worked with our health insurance advisor, our actuary, our Labour Council, and many others. On February 1st, 2016, Selectman Landry released an independent report with the recommendation that all retiree health contributions be brought to 50% from the current 65 to 86.3% immediately. The OPEB Advisory Committee released its report on March 24th to a well-attended meeting with the opportunity for public input. This report recommended that the town implement changes in the retiree contribution rates down to 50% for all retirees over a period of time. This was followed by a meeting in this auditorium on March 31st, where the OPEB Advisory Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee, together with our consultants, entertained public input regarding the OPEB report. At this time, the impetus was still to move all retirees to 50% immediately. The Board of Selectmen held a workshop session on April 11th to discuss the OPEB Advisory Committee's recommendations and the potential actions that the Board of Selectmen could take. There was a suggestion to consider a phased-in approach. Continuing to work with our consultants, the town manager presented a compromise plan on April 20th. This proposal is a first step toward addressing our OPEB liability. It has the following important components. There will be no change for retirees who are 65 or over who are on the Medics 2 plan, which accounts for 432 retirees. Surviving spouses will continue to receive health insurance from the town. For those between the ages of 55 to 65, 28% of these retirees will see no change in year 1. Furthermore, 68% of this group will be eligible for Medicare within 4 years, and they will revert to the 65% town contribution. I consider the town manager's proposal, OPEB, a pathway forward, to be a living document that will be revisited on an ongoing basis. Mitigation funds in the amount of $357,000 could be used to help those retirees most affected by the change in premiums. I would encourage the town manager to talk to the Public Employees Committee, or the PEC as it is referred to, about potential opportunities to mitigate, which would help those retirees most in need. Today, the town received the actuarial analysis of the impacts associated with implementing the plan before the board tonight. The town manager has advocated for using all of the savings yielded from the plan and appropriate those funds to the OPEB Trust Fund. Based on the analysis, the town will have fully funded its OPEB liability by 2054, or in 37 years. This is compared to maintaining the status quo, which would result in an unfunded liability of $650 million in 30 years. This board has to consider the best interests of all of the stakeholders in this town, our residents, our businesses, our employees, and our retirees. The town manager's plan is the first step in our path toward a sustainable and responsible OPEB solution. And now I'd like to open it up to the board for comments and discussion. Please, excuse me. The board, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Any comments from members of the board, and then I'll go to the audience.
I'll start.
Sure.
I think the town manager has found a compromise. When you look at all the levers at the disposal. Trying to. How's that? Better?
Yeah.
I think the town manager's plan, as Mary pointed out, represents a very appropriate start to tackling this very difficult problem. We've had 2 years and 2 committees and 2 reports that I think has done plenty of analysis, and I think the focus on this initial phase of OPEB reform on retiree health premium contributions, and in particular the town manager recommendation, I think it achieves the reform we need, but it also protects the most vulnerable. So I hope we have the support for this.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, I'm going to open up to the audience for your commentary. And if you could please come to the podium and identify yourself, please, for the audience and for those watching on television.
Hi, my name is Dave Nichols, and I've worked for the town for roughly 40 years, and I live on 24 Smithshire. Since no stakeholders at all have actually been allowed to sit with or be represented on the OPEB committee, we have formed an ad hoc committee that would like to present to you a suggestion. And however, first, we'd like to tell you who we are.
My name is Tom Myers. I taught in public school for 37 years, 30 in the Andover public school system, mostly at Andover High School.
Thank you, Tom.
I am Barbara Morash. I have 37 years creditable service. I worked for the school department for 1 year. I worked for the Greater Lawrence Technical School for 8.5 years, and I worked for the town of Andover for 28 years.
Thank you, Barbara.
John Hines, Andover firefighter for 21 years.
Thank you.
I'm Jimmy Katiccia. I retired as a lieutenant in the fire department. I had 34 years of service.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Good evening. My name is Billy Canane. I'm a lifelong Andover resident of 64 years. I'm a retired Andover police officer with 36 years of town service.
Thank you, Bill.
Eric Tykert, Andover Fire Department, current employee, 30 years.
Thank you, Eric.
Good evening. My name is Tony Terisi. I am the retired finance director for the town of Andover, retired in 2011. I lived in Andover for 32 years and was also finance director for that same period of time.
Thanks, Tony.
We feel it is crucial for retirees who face the greatest financial burden in both the OPEB committee report and the town manager's proposal to be not only listened to, but part of the solution. We would like the time to sit down together with representatives of the Selectmen, put our minds together, and mutually see what we can do for the town of Andover, its citizens, employees, and retirees. We are offering the Selectmen what we believe to be an alternative, a rational plan that can save $630,000 this year, which can be devoted to the OPEB fund. First, we suggest that the Medicare-eligible retirees who currently received managed blue coverage be moved to the Medics program as of July 1st. This will save the town $273,000 this fiscal year. Secondly, the Employee Health Insurance Advisory Committee, the PEC Committee, have voted to place $357,000 in mitigation money into the OPEB trust fund for this year. The retirees have offered their entire cost-shifting savings to help fund the OPEB account. These two proposals add up to the town saving $630,000, which is significantly higher than the amount offered by the town manager's plan. Although the plan increases rates for many seniors, it does not financially cause devastation to many of our elderly that is imminent in the manager's proposal. And I think if you look at it, it goes up to $15,000 in 4 years. With this one-year proposal, we ask that no further cuts accrue in retiree health insurance this year. And we wish to work with the town manager and selectmen in order to investigate future ways to fund the OPEB trust fund. From the chair, this evening we ask you for an actual response. And we ask you for a little bit of a discussion with the town manager and Ken Lombardi. We would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm Bernice Bunny Downs, speaking for myself and my husband, Bill. My husband and I are retired town employees. Between the two of us, we have approximately 70 years of paid service to the town, plus at least 18 years unpaid. We are 85 and 88 years old and lifelong residents, paying house taxes for 61 years. Both of our parents paid taxes before that, starting in 1924 until the 1970s. Bill and I have been paying taxes longer than anyone on the Board of Selectmen, and for that matter, most taxpayers in town. We have certainly paid our share. Currently, I am working at the Senior Center through the SCRIP program, which helps lessen our house taxes. We hope to stay in Andover as long as we can. We love Andover. The town manager's plan is still far too much for us to pay. It would cost us an additional $1,600 plus a year, and that is only as long as you keep the medics at $65.35. I suspect that the next plan in year 5 will put us at 50%. And this does not include any increases in Medicare. This year, that increase was about 15%. With all the tax money that the town spends on the teens and schools and other interest groups, I think you are shortchanging the retirees who've been devoted employees. I'm not speaking for only ourselves, but for the others who will feel the increase more than we do. We personally could manage a smaller increase, but it doesn't seem like you are interested in listening to us or to other proposals. Do you realize that the plan is to double, almost triple our insurance in 1 year? Mr. Landry, you approached me a few weeks ago and told me that I would be happy with the new plan. I am not happy. Please take a second look at this plan.
I never said that.
Excuse me.
Please take
Excuse me, Bonnie, just one moment. I just need to say something to the gentleman behind you. I'm going to conduct a civil meeting.
Fine, if he's gonna respond, Madam Chair, he will respond.
Excuse me.
You can't have it both ways.
Excuse me.
He challenged her credibility, Madam.
I am saying to everyone in this room that we are going to conduct a civil meeting, Mr. Katitia.
That's
Thank you very
fine.
much.
There's gotta be a
Could you please allow Mrs. Downs to continue? Thank you. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Please take a second look at this plan and don't rush into drastically hurting the people who have served the town well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie.
We would be glad to answer any questions you have about our plan and our proposal.
Questions from the board? Okay. Pull the mic close, Dan. Yeah, thank you.
So what you're proposing actually would hurt money. You know, so that's something we all have to think about, is any changes are going to hurt somebody. But I would like to understand a little bit more about what you're proposing, because what is said verbally and what is put down on a piece of paper is often far different. Now, when the Board of Selectmen received the proposal from the PAC, the proposal, just for clarification purposes, would have routed the roughly $350,000 of savings, so to speak, that would have gone back to the PAC. The PAC had proposed to put that into the OPEB trust fund. But part of that proposal, which is a public document, as it was distributed in a public meeting, would have frozen the Board of Selectmen's ability to make any changes to health care for, I believe it's 3 years, is the way that I read that document. So maybe you can just clarify what your proposal is now, so that at least I can understand that.
Thank you.
Barbara Morash. I am the PEC retiree representative. And we did hear a few rumors that there was some misunderstanding about what the PEC agreement was proposing. And one of the misunderstandings was that you could not make any design changes in the 3-year period. That is not true. The way it was written, and it was explained to Mr. Lombardi, and I believe the town manager was there at the time, was this did not prohibit any design changes, and that potentially in the next 3 years you would have to go through the same process of section 21 through 23, and there would probably be some mitigation money involved. So it's too bad that that question, if that was an issue, wasn't asked, 3 weeks ago. Does that answer your question, Mr. Kowalski?
And Andrew, why don't you tell us what your, and Ken as well, can you tell us what your impression of that agreement?
Sure. So as Barbara had mentioned, the proposal referred to legislation sections 21 through 23, and I think we believe that the language suggested that if the proposal were approved by the Board of Selectmen, there'd be no change in contribution rates for the next 3 years. But I do believe the language would have permitted the town to, once again, in the future, unilaterally change plan design, so long as under section 21 through 23, the State Group Insurance Commission modified its healthcare plan, noted as the Tufts Health Plan Navigator. So the board likely could have still issued another plan design change in the future, so that would have been in the second or third year of the agreement, so there could still be some movement in plan design changes in an incremental fashion. So I do believe that's what was being proposed.
Thank you, Ken.
But there was no percentage changes? Is that what?
Yeah, I think, John, if I can make sure I'm correct, that the proposal linked the Board of Selectmen to not modifying any of the contribution changes on any of the healthcare plans.
So plan design was on the table, but percentage changes were not.
Correct.
For 3 years.
Yeah.
And tonight, that you've now heard that, 1 year.
Then there was, to your point.
Yep, it was a proposal.
There was a misunderstanding from this board that we thought that plan design changes were not, we could not.
So yes, that would definitely, like on you guys, because Ken and with the town manager and whoever was there for the PEC committee was in the room. We discussed that, and made sure that everybody was on the same page, that it didn't include the plan design changes. The proposal was just for holding a moratorium on the percentage contributions. And we will consider, we've even tonight now suggested again to reconsider for a year term instead of a 3-year term. That's what you heard tonight. Same thing applies, the plan designs, capable of meeting with the PEC and making those changes on plan design, but we're just asking for a year and putting up that money instead. Basically, offsetting the time frame with the dollars.
Madam-
So, right, that is part of the town manager's plan
Right.
also.
Which, if I can speak on that, we also discussed that in the Public Employee Committee and understood that, you know, based on the numbers, that the plans are only like $7 difference, that the numbers of the population, with the exception of the contribution split, we recognize that the MEDEX plan is as well outside of the 13% contribution split. It mirrors the Managed Blue for Seniors plan, so it would make sense for the town to move in that one plan direction.
So it's important to point out that this proposal is a one-year plan. The town manager's plan is a four-year plan. Your statement with regards to moving the 65 plus, moving everyone to medics as of July 1. The town manager's plan is to move everyone to medics as of January 1. And as for the PEC dollars, they were not available to us within the plan, but certainly if that is being offered to help those retirees most in need, I think that would be most welcome.
So that's what, you know, effective July 1st, those funds would be available for an OPEB mitigation.
Yeah, but as I pointed out, the town manager's plan is a more comprehensive plan. It's a four-year window. We have, and I outlined, and I'm happy to go back with you again, the actuarial update showing us what exactly that means. This really,
So wouldn't it be only fair to say that you could present this new monies to the actuary and ask her to refigure those numbers and maybe actually see less than 37 years, because now in the first year are making a larger contribution?
The plan that's before the Board of Selectmen this evening is, and I've said it, and I think somebody else around the table also said it, it's the beginning, it's a starting point. This is going to evolve over maybe even the next year, but certainly within the four-year period.
And if I could add to that,
Mr.
Mary.
Flanagan?
Mary, if I could just add to that, you said it in your opening statement. This, the town manager's OPEB plan that has been vetted, has been put before the board for consideration for a vote tonight, has been the culmination of 2 years of study and reports. It is, as you put it, I thought put it well, it's a living document, just like any reform. This is always subject to change and subject to amendments if there are good ideas, and we can do some amendments after the fact. Nothing is precluded here. So we can move forward with the town manager's plan, and if there's other proposals that get vetted and properly presented and quantified, there's nothing that stops this board from amending the town manager's four-year plan as we go. There's no reason to hold up what is a plan that's been put a lot of work, a lot of thought has been put into it as the starting point for OPEB reform. And I think we just have to move on from there and consider, the door is always open for the board to consider amendments or modifications.
Believe it or not, this topic, and I think our town manager will attest to that, and the members around the table, has taken up more time than any other issue before us here, and I include all of the budgets in that. And you all know the time that we give to that. This issue has been on our table every single day for the last 2 years. So what we have before us is the culmination of 2 years of work. I think it's very important to realize that, and that's why I wanted to give some historical data when we started here this evening.
Can I ask
If I can
can I ask a
respond.
question of John?
Just one moment, Mr. Myers.
Oh, can I ask a question of John? John, you had mentioned your proposal was to take the $350,000 or so, put that into an OPEB mitigation fund. Are you saying to deposit that into the existing OPEB trust fund, or are you
Yes.
saying to use those funds to offset
No,
retiree contributions that could increase as a result of what you're recommending, so to offset that?
Nope, saying to put it into the OPEB trust fund. I mean, we have other suggestions too. Put that money into PRIT and earn more. Your own actuary actually stated that would be a significant increase in reducing the liability, so we're just asking for
So
you
you're-
to consider those things.
Right. So your suggestion is not to use those monies to mitigate those who are most affected.
And our position is that we are doing exactly that with the money. We are putting it into some good use by therefore mitigating everybody that's affected by these changes.
Thank you.
So in essence, the proposal is really a one-year stay on the percentage contributions for those individuals that retired prior to 65. That are on a health plan associated with a health plan that would be applicable prior to age 65.
And the non-Medicare eligible retirees.
Yeah, because you're going to move some of them, there's what, 200, I think, right? That's-
212.
Yeah, into medics. So that would also be a sort of a change to the initial proposal as well, because those people would be affected by a contribution split, moving them to the 35%.
Thank you.
I think when you talk about, Chairman Donahue, the notion of,
O'Donoghue.
O'Donoghue, sorry. The concept of, we've been at it for 2 years. I think from our perspective, we're looking at that one group of people that have served, and you've heard this ad infinitum, I know that already, have served in all sorts of capacities as teachers, firefighters, town workers, et cetera, police officers. And we're the ones who are being put under the gun with a substantial increase. No matter how you cut it, it still is a substantial increase. And what we've tried to do tonight is to come forward with a realistic proposal that has two facets to it. The $357,000 that the employee group and retiree group is offering to you, as well as an additional $250,000 by moving people into medics. And by doing this, we're saying this will solve, at least in the immediate, an attempt to put some money from the employees into the account, and then to sit down with us. And we're making, I think, here a sincere commitment to you to sit down and to begin to work on other proposals that have worked in other communities and haven't taken the legs under the people who are on a fixed income. And we're asking you to pause for a second, just as you had stated a few weeks ago in this very auditorium, madam, to pause and to give us a chance to work with you in a rational, coherent way to try to solve this problem. Once you take the vote, you put yourselves and you put us in a real difficult situation. Us financially, yourselves ethically, morally, and politically. And I think that's critical to understand. You have been at it for a long time. I concur. And we've been led in all sorts of primrose paths, from the chairperson of the OPEB committee telling us that we will not have to deal as retirees with this issue as far as personal harm, that it will be prospective and not retrospective. And that was stated several times in public meetings. And lo and behold, I guess we all were snookered. And it was not the moral or ethical thing to do to us. And we're asking you, don't snooker us again. Don't sell us down the river. You guys live in this town with us. You walk down the streets, we do. I might live in Lawrence now. I grew up in this town. And, you know, you're going to have to face us all. Whether you're selling real estate, you're selling life insurance, whatever you're doing, you're going to have to face us as human beings. Don't sell yourselves out. Don't put yourself in that position.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to ask you to stick to facts. I will not listen to any member of the audience here calling any member of this board out as being immoral, unethical, or whatever. Let's stick with the facts. Let's stick with the facts. Thank you, Barbara.
I'll tone it down a little. I don't think I have any insults in my speech, so I'll try to proofread as I go. As you know, I'm Barbara Morash. I'm the retiree rep. I've served in this capacity for 1.5 years, but also I was on the committee as an employee rep for many years before my retirement. I have to say that this is truly a thankless job. After the first meeting I went to as the retiree rep, I said, "What was I thinking?" I'm sure you have all thought the same things in the seats you're sitting in. But now I'm especially glad that I was appointed to this committee. And I just want to say that this group is not the PEC committee. I'm part of this group, but I'm also part of the PEC committee. And so is John and Eric. Anyways, I'm especially glad that I was appointed to this committee because we, meaning most of the audience, all need someone on this committee that understands the topics, can see both sides of the issues, is not hesitant to speak up, and who sincerely wants to do what is fair for everyone with special attention to the retirees. I'm proud to think that I serve this position well. Even though my fellow PEC members may think I'm too vocal, too preaching, and maybe even too stubborn, right, Ken?
Second that.
I do think that they would say I do a good job. Now, down to this. Now, down to the serious business at hand. Most of the speech I wrote before this new proposal was in discussion, so I hope it doesn't conflict with it. Okay, so as you know, the town is once again changing the plans after only a year. And the savings will be $1.4 million for the town for these changes. And 25% of that is the $357,000 you keep hearing about. The changes that create the savings is mostly due to subscribers paying higher prescription drug costs, and let's face it, cost shifting to subscribers in general. I have to say that I am so proud of this PEC committee. When we first started discussing the mitigation money, because I am the retiree rep, I kept saying things like, but what about the retirees? What about the retirees on Medics and Managed Blue, who had increases in January amounting to 3.9% and 8.2%? They weren't given any mitigation money for those increases. We need to share this money. Well, it wasn't long before all the employees on the PEC were warming to the idea of sharing the money with those less fortunate on fixed incomes, those who have no recourse at all in any health insurance. About this same time, Selectman Landry started his drive to solve the OPEB problem by simply turning it over to the retirees. And let's face it, that's kind of all we've heard about solving the OPEB problem so far. It's number 2 on the OPEB list. The PEC members started discussing this action and said, could this really be happening in Andover? The Andover that we're all so proud to work for? The Andover that we're privileged to call our home or our second home by being here 5 days a week. Okay, so the PEC committee, once we all looked at the numbers, and I think I provided those same numbers that all of you received 2 months ago, we realized the impact on the retirees was staggering. That's when these wonderful employees on the PEC from both town and school really rose to the occasion. The decision was that if we can somehow use this mitigation money to slow down this process so we can all come to a better solution or a combination of solutions, this would be the absolute right thing to do. As a PEC, we have been frustrated by the lack of discussion and feedback concerning our proposal to the Selectmen. We had repeatedly asked for you to consider this as a legitimate first step, just like your first step, in all of us banding together to start working on this OPEB issue. Just today at 1 o'clock, we received the official rejection of this proposal. And I do understand that maybe there were misunderstandings. All right, so in a way, I take this to mean that you as a board are not interested in any creative ideas from the PEC, that we shouldn't even think outside of the box. Considering you are private sector professionals, I don't understand why you haven't appreciated the initiative and creativity in our proposal, or at least discussions on various proposals. I have one more paragraph, okay? Just to be clear, the proposal was that we enter into a 3-year agreement to hold off changing the retiree contribution percentages and give the mitigation money to be put toward the OPEB liability. Also, yeah, we are trying to get the gift of time because we want to work with you. And that's why I think we're all frustrated and very vocal about this. And I explained that land design changes could still be made, and if they were, it would be very likely that we would again donate that mitigation money back to decrease the OPEB liability. The point is, we are willing and interested in helping to address this issue. It doesn't seem like you really want our participation if you vote tonight. You just want our money, and only through rate increases. Thank you.
Thank you. We have other members of the public here who would like to speak to the topic. If you'd like to come to the podium, please. Please identify yourself. Thank you.
My name is Ross Elkin. I live at 167 Highland Road. And I encourage the selectmen to vote tonight to adopt the town manager's proposal to address OPEB.
If you could speak into the mic, thank you very much.
Andover's OPEB problem is real. It is neither invented, nor is it a vestige of some questionable accounting methodology. It's something that we have to address now. A host of people, including the selectmen, the town manager, other town employees, volunteers, members of town boards, and outside professionals have studied the issue. The solution being proposed is the only responsible way to solve the problem. The town manager's plan is equitable in that it fulfills the town's obligation to provide health insurance to today's retirees while ensuring that the same benefit is available to future retirees. All of the funds going to retiree health insurance now will continue to go to retiree health insurance in the future. Plus, the town plan adds additional funding in the form of a percentage of each year's town budget. To be clear, the plan being proposed increases the town's commitment to retiree health insurance. There's been some suggestion that we should wait to address the OPEB problem, that we fund pension obligations first, that we assume a higher investment return, or simply take more time to study the issue. Frankly, this is nothing more than kicking the can down the road, and it is exactly what has led us to the position in which we now find ourselves. By the time we fund the pension obligation, the OPEB liability will have grown to more than $300 million. And the problem will be even more difficult, if not impossible, to solve. Assuming unrealistic investment returns contributed to the current problem, doing more of the same would be simply wrong. Taking additional time solves nothing. The problem we face is not one of particle physics or theoretical mathematics. It is discrete, it's well understood, and there is a solution that has been identified. We all want to have choices. When we don't have them, we feel some combination of anxiety, helplessness, even anger. That's natural. Well, our OPEB problem has left us without choices, and we're feeling the effects. The town manager and the selectmen are to be commended for tackling the issue and developing the best possible solution to a bad problem. It's called taking responsibility, and it's what good government does. I urge the selectmen to vote tonight to adopt the town manager's plan.
Thank you, Mr. Elkin.
Evening. I'm Jerry Gustus, 5 Fern Road in Andover. I've written yous a few times, and I've written the paper a few times, and struck by a couple of things. I don't have a prepared statement. One is that I don't feel and have not felt that this is a case of either you vote tonight or we're at $650 million at risk. I think that if you voted 2 weeks from tonight or a month, or even as Mr. Myers said, you know, adopting their plan as a pathway to a broader negotiation with the affected parties, that 37 years from now, the needle would not have moved a tremendous amount. I'm also concerned not just with the retirees, but with the employees who are the older employees and the spouses of the older employees who have made decisions in their professional lives as to what to do and how to retire and how to plan for the retirement with the implied benefits that have been within their contracts all along. And I think that a sudden shift to a change on that really misserves those people. I negotiated a contract with the teachers union 15 years ago when I was on the school committee, and the contract is not a question of we want to be paid this much, but we only want to pay you that much. The contract is everything that is encompassed in it, and it is those kind of benefits that make teachers and police and fire and town workers decide I will work for this much because I'm working towards a longer goal. My wife is a double master's degree holder from Penn State University, and she makes, I think, about $14 an hour in her town job, and easily could have gone out into the private sector and made a great deal more than that, but for our own purposes, our lifestyle, and you know, the desire to stay closer to home, but also because of the health benefits that were offered and like I said, implied in contract after contract. We made the family decision and the retirement decision to have her do what she does for the town of Andover. And so I just feel that a sudden shift, a sudden vote is simply unfair. Last point I want to make is that I know that this has been going on for several years, but the plan that's before you has been going on for a couple of meetings. It is only recently been put to paper. It's only recently been published out from the working sessions. There's been very little to no input on it. It is now just simply here, and I think to vote on it and to pass it really moves the needle to poison any future negotiations and collaboration with the affected parties. So, thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Hartwell. I've been a resident of Andover for 33 years. I'm retired, a CPA. I recently served on the OPEB Advisory Committee, and I'm also currently serving on the Andover Retirement Board. When we're talking about OPEB and pension, I'm reminded of this clock that's in New York City. If you've ever been to New York City, there's a clock near Times Square which shows the national debt. And it shows the increase in the national debt going up by every second. And there's also a commercial on TV where you have an actor selling gold and showing this clock where the debt is going up every second. If we had a clock here in Andover, we would show a debt for pension and OPEB of approximately $300 million. And this debt goes up every day. That $300 million represents a debt for of $9,000 for every man, woman, and child here in Andover. $9,000 for every man, woman, and child. If you want to put it in a different way, and by the way, the actuary has shown in her report that on an actuarial basis, our OPEB debt's going to go up by $9.5 million over the next year. That translates into $26,000 a day. Now, I've heard this discussion about this $357,000 being offered by PEC, and that's certainly generous and admirable of them. But that represents only 13 days of payment for our debt. If you look at if it's costing us $26,000 a day as our OPEB debt increases.
Please allow the speaker the same civility that you were allowed when you came to the podium.
As a member of the OPEB Advisory Committee, I, along with my colleagues, spent hundreds of hours attending meetings, listening to taxpayers, retirees, and employees giving their thoughts and solutions to OPEB. We did a considerable amount of research on our own to try to come up with solutions. We put in our report 21 recommendations. Many of them will help reduce the OPEB liability, but it really comes down to just one recommendation that's going to materially reduce our OPEB liability and put us on a path to have this thing fully funded. And that is our recommendation number 2, where we recommended that the town increase the retirees' premium contributions rate to 50%. The town manager's plan, we believe, or I believe, does this in a fair and humane way that lessens the impact on the most vulnerable employees. You've heard the math. If we do nothing today, we're going to have a $652 million debt. Even if you delay this a year and take the money that's been talked about up here by the employees and retirees, we're still going to have most of that $9.5 million increase in our OPEB debt. And I think it's a bad decision if the Board of Selectmen delay this vote, and I highly recommend that they approve the town manager's plan.
Thank you, Tom. This gentleman here.
Okay, good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Pete Otis, 56 Maple Avenue, North Andover. I'm a 25-year veteran teacher in Andover. I'm also the first vice president of the 800-member Andover Educational Association. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my members regarding a couple of matters of concern. The first is transparency and the sense of urgency surrounding OPEB. After attending the March 31st meeting, I left believing that adequate time and careful analysis of the feedback received would take place. Unfortunately, since that meeting, 2 selectmen meetings were held in which no public comments were taken regarding the OPEB proposal. Furthermore, the town manager's follow-up proposal, titled OPEB, A Pathway Forward, dated April 20th, was released during school vacation when many of us were away with families. Now tonight, only a few business days later, the Board of Selectmen are contemplating taking a vote on this plan. I and many here tonight struggle with how that is transparent and respectfully request that you slow down the process and work with all stakeholders. The second concern is a letter we recently received from the Retired State, County, and Municipal Employees Association of Massachusetts. In that letter, President Frank Valeri, commenting specifically on the Andover OPEB Advisory Committee's final report, stated, and I quote, "With few exceptions, the recommendations levied in Andover are the most extreme we have yet to see in Massachusetts. They appear to be driven by either a misunderstanding of public and financial policy or a political agenda aimed at significantly limiting retiree benefits," end quote. Mr. Flanagan's proposal before you tonight to implement the first action step of that very report to systematically increase retiree premium contributions to 50% over 4 years causes great concerns to town workers who view this as a precursor to the full implementation of Andover's OPEB Advisory Committee's final report. Many believe that report, if enacted as written, would constitute theft of employee benefits and treat retirees solely as financial liabilities. In closing, I emphatically urge the Board of Selectmen to postpone this vote in order to explore other viable options, many of which you've heard tonight, which not only address the OPEB debt, but continue to be fair and equitable to all retirees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you could please identify yourself. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peter McCalligot, an Andover resident for almost 39 years. I'm a retired human resource executive and have taken an interest in the OPEB unfunded liability issue upon becoming aware of it almost a year ago. Starting in June of last year, I attended many of the OPEB committee meetings. Also present at those meetings were numerous retirees and current employees, who, along with myself, were given ample opportunities to ask questions and to make their concerns known. Let me state that my wife and I truly appreciate the services that our town employees, both current and retired, have provided to Andover. Never more so than when we had a small fire in our home a few years ago. And that we support a strong retiree health care program, but one that is affordable and sustainable. I am concerned that unless action is taken today regarding the town's $184 million unfunded OPEB liability, that monies needed to pay the town's growing health care bill, which is $5 million for retirees today and estimated to grow in excess of 5% a year for both retirees and existing employees. The monies needed to pay this bill, unless changes are made in the OPEB funding, will begin to have a negative impact on future school and town budgets. I ask you, will monies necessary in the future be available to pay salaries and to provide the services and programs that we have come to expect? After attending many OPEB committee meetings and listening to input from all in attendance, I truly believe the time for action is now. While the issue is still manageable and before town services and programs are negatively impacted. Consequently, I strongly support the town manager's proposal regarding changes to retiree health care plans and ask the selectmen to accept the proposal. I believe the plan to be fair, and it will be a major step toward positively impacting the town's unfunded OPEB liability issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. This gentleman over here.
Hi, I'm Art I. Worsley, 8 Ringe Road, Andover. Usually when I speak in front of a microphone, it's because I did something good. Tonight, I did something bad. I retired. 48 years ago, when I started teaching, I never thought that I would be a problem when I retired. My wife retired, 40 years of service. I have 46 years. That's 86 years of service. I look at some of the people standing in front of me, and I look at the town manager. What was he doing 48 years ago? He wasn't even born. Some of you on the stage were probably in elementary school or middle school or maybe high school. You were making a decision that affects all the retirees today and forever. Keep that in mind when you make a decision.
Thank you very much, Art.
My name is Jane Giffen. I live on Castle Heights Road, and I'd like to thank the town manager and...
Can't hear you. Little louder, Jane. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the town manager and the selectmen for bringing this forward. This is very scary to hear all these numbers. I've lived in Andover for 3 decades, which is apparently nothing lately. I love this town. I love it so much, and some of the things about it, I've actually left money in my will. No, you can't have it right now. That when I'm gone, we can still have our Wednesday night concerts because my spirit's going to be around watching. I want Andover to stay the community that it is. We need to get physically responsible. We need to be able to pay for the things that we have. Maybe not the concerts, I'll handle that. But I think this is going on for 2 years. Everyone has done a wonderful job. I'm reminded of us saying the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. We've already taken that one step, thanks to you people, for taking one half of 1% of our budget to go towards OPEB. We need to make this vote tonight so that this bill does not keep getting larger and larger and larger. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Good evening. My name is Roy Dobelarm. I live at Moreland Ave in Andover. I'd like to represent, if I might, the unorganized, somewhat silent majority of the taxpayers in this town. I have never worked for the town. I will never get a pension from the town. And I have and will always be paying for my health care as long as I live. And I'm okay with that. But most importantly, I have been a taxpayer in Andover for the last 25 years. My wife has been a taxpayer for at least 50 years. I love this town. I want to live in this town for the rest of my life. So I hope to be paying taxes in Andover for another 25 years at least. But we have a very serious financial crisis on our hands, and as everyone knows, it cannot be ignored or kicked down the road for another year. It can be solved, and it must be resolved, and I believe it needs to be resolved now. Although I have not participated in the planning that got us into this problem, nor do I benefit directly from the OPEB program, I do respect that I enjoy the services of the fire and the police and the teachers and everybody else who does work for the town, and they certainly deserve everything that they get, and I don't believe that any of them should be harmed by what we're doing here tonight, but I do believe that every one of us is going to be involved in paying for this situation, so it's going to hurt everyone a little bit. No one can be left out of that equation. I expect to pay more taxes. I don't want to, but I expect if we're going to get out from underneath this huge financial crisis that everyone's going to have to kick in. So I don't believe, as some seem to, that they're the only ones who are going to get hit with this, that they're the problem, that they're the reason why this exists tonight. I think there's no sense blaming anybody at this point, but we have the problem and we're all in it together, and we're all going to need to help pitch in and pay for it. I also expect that the terms and conditions that caused this crisis will be changed going forward. But I'd like to interject the idea that comes from those that only involvement in OPEB is that they help pay for it. And let's say nothing is done to fix the funding problem for the next 15 years. Everyone knows the town will be in debt $650 million. I'm not going to go into the whole sad thing, but it'll be a disaster for this town if that happens. Teachers laid off. We won't be able to hire enough police and firemen to keep us safe. And I'll tell you, I never wake up in the morning wondering whether I'm going to live through the day because I'm a fireman or a policeman. I have tremendous respect for what they do, and they certainly deserve everything they get. But we have a situation here that if it doesn't get taken care of, we're not going to have the town that we all love. We're not going to be able to hire the policemen and the firefighters and the teachers that we love. Financial crisis is just that. It's a disaster, and our town could be, I don't want to demean Lawrence, but we could turn into a place where the property values and the commercial values plummet, that no one will be able to raise taxes to pay for the things that we need, and everything will just dissolve and disappear. It's happening right now if we don't start to take care of it. So I believe that the proposal that our town manager has put together seems fair and reasonable to me. I didn't know anything about the group that was here before, but I will assume that you will take into consideration their proposal and decide whether it works or not. But ultimately, I would like to see you folks get this thing moving tonight, vote on it, approve this as a first step, and as you say, it's only a first step that needs to be tweaked and worked going forward. So, like I say, I expect to share in solving the problem. I expect that it's going to cost me money. I'm not retired yet, but I will be soon. So I'm going to be a retiree who is going to cost more to live because of this problem. I expect that. I accept that. That's the way it needs to be. This is our town. We all love it. We all have to share in the joy, and we all have to accept any of the sorrow that comes from having to fix a huge financial crisis. So please, move it forward tonight and take into consideration their concerns as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. This lady here. If you'd like to go next, yes. Thank you.
My name is Karen Courtney, 7 Central Lane, Andover, and I just wanted to take a moment to ask you to take a little more time before you make this decision. My father was a public employee here for 30 years. He was a teacher, and I can tell you he just recently passed, and I can tell you that one of the things that always really gave him peace of mind was the fact that he had reasonably priced health insurance. And as he got older, and as I had to manage his finances and my mom's, I never realized just how they got on with so little. And I can tell you right now that a $1,600 increase or whatever it's going to be can be devastating when you're in your 70s or 80s. When you're living on a fixed income, when you can only make so much money or you have to pay it back because of the way that the pension system is run, I think that that's really unfortunate. But I can say right now that I've been involved in labor relations for over 30 years, and I also love this town. And when I see that public employees coming together, making you an offer and asking you for a little more time, I really don't think that that's too much to ask. I am not a public employee. I am a small business owner. I pay for my employees. I pay for their health insurance. And I think it's important when you're an employer to really deal with the issues before your employees, because morale is a very, very important thing, and it can cost us all. And I think that it's one thing to try to solve a $650 million problem that really did not happen yesterday. I've been in and around this town for almost 40 years, and I can tell you, I've been hearing about this for the whole time. And I hear people talking about it all the time. And I'm not saying don't solve the problem. I'm just saying when people offer to work with you to try to make it just a little bit less devastating for the populations that they represent, I think that you owe them that. So I ask you to please just take a little bit more time and try to work with the people who have offered to work with you and who have offered solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Hi, my name is Will Kramer. I've been a resident for almost 24 years. I've inundated you with emails, so sorry about that, filling up your inboxes. The reason I've done that is not that my wife and I would be terribly harmed. We're probably in the better off category of retirees. The reason I've been doing that is because, quite honestly, I'm not sure that you've considered all the options that exist. So ding me if I get a little snarky. I'm trying not to. I've been toning this down as I've been sitting in the audience. So I've only been really involved since the March 31st meeting. My wife got a letter a couple days before that, and then I fired off an email, and then I attended the meeting. So I do understand that there's a lot of work that went into the OPEB committee through a lot of individuals. There's an exhaustive report. There's I think 23 recommendations, but whatever the number is, it's very expansive in terms of covering all retirement and health insurance issues, both for employees and for retirees. But quite honestly, having been around this game for a month, to me it looks like a month. And I'll tell you why. Recommendation 2, the simple version of it is, we'll just jack up the rates to the legal limit. That's what 50% is. Doesn't take into account any of the other recommendations and how they could be fed back into recommendation number 2. Doesn't look at current employees. What if I raise those by 5%? Could I feed something into OPEB or half of it? So the report itself just doesn't logically fold back into the various considerations that it had and that it could. And I find sort of a lack of imagination in other places. And I'll tell you what I mean. So there was that meeting about a month ago. There have been 2 meetings since. 5 days ago, the town manager has a new proposal. Everybody has a big sigh of relief because it's not 50% anymore. And I do agree, I think he's listened. I think it's a much better proposal, but I don't think it's a final proposal. So where am I coming from? My problem is really, I guess, given that we heard from Bunny before, and the speaker just before me, it's sort of the Bunny problem. So I've made slick view graphs in my time, and I know you're trying to do a good job, and I know you feel that you're representing it honestly. But quite simply, moving everybody from managed blue seniors to MedX at $809 more a year, which is where the $1,600 I think that people are referencing comes from, and supposedly getting more for the money is kind of an interesting statement. So $809 is 81 doctor's visits, co-pays. I don't think I'm going to get value for that. How many emergency room visits would I have to have? The care from HMO Blue is almost the same. The only reason I would need MedX is if I'm a snowbird or I don't live in Massachusetts. The network's almost identical, and the care I get is identical. So the $809, what could the town do instead? And where does the whole issue of rates come from? Quite honestly, the town's getting a very lousy rate on managed blue. So the town cost for MedX and for managed blue is almost identical. Yet supposedly MedX is so much better than managed blue. Why does it cost the same? Because you're getting a lousy rate. So I can go out and I can buy managed HMO blue plus RX with practically the same co-pays, myself, individual, for $235.50 a month. I would hope that the town could do better than that in a group plan. What would that mean? That would actually mean that if you were to offer that to employees, you could save $976 per participant per year, and at least give the retirees that are over 65 or 65 and over a choice. They can choose MedX if they feel it's better. They could choose the other plan, but at least you've given them an option. And you could do that without raising the rates for the people that are currently on managed blue for seniors. Have I heard any discussion like that? No. Maybe it hasn't been on the table, but I'd like to put it on the table. So that's a win-win. But you could do the same sort of thing for the pre-65 retirees. So you want to move them to a higher payment plan. Okay, well, you know, I mean, there are different views on how fast you move, where you go. But again, you don't have to just offer a Cadillac plan. If you're really going to raise rates, you could offer another plan where people have a choice. They have the choice of, okay, I'll have higher co-pays, I maybe take a little bit of risk, but they don't have to be forced out into the open market or pay sometimes pretty exorbitant increases. So that's what I would like to suggest, and I haven't seen those kinds of discussions. You know, so I feel like it's a rush to judgment because of the town meeting that's coming up. You want to put it in front of the town meeting, which would be nice. but it's next week.
Thank you.
And I don't think you've really considered other options. The final thing I'd like to say, and this is on behalf of Bunny and other retirees, and again, it's not really myself, although it's kind of true confessions. So I retired about 2.5 years ago from the private sector, a little less than that. And it was a shock. And I'm sure every retiree has a different story. And part of it is you lose your identity. You know, you lose your
I'd like to ask you to wrap it up, please,
Okay,
Mr. Kramer.
I'll make
Thank
it quick. So my wife even said, now you're a has-been. So that was a nice little needle. You lose some of your social connections. But what you really lose is that you close the door on all future earnings. You're not going to get any increases. You're not going to get anything. What you've got is what you've got.
Thank you.
And that's what it means to be a retiree with a fixed income.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Brian Major.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Brian Major, 11 Odyssey Way, and I very much appreciate the fiduciary responsibility that you all have, and this is a big issue. And it's an issue that isn't just starting, and as I would argue that we've been working toward this over the last 7 years. And the townspeople have been working this issue with us in order to try to come to resolution, to be able to put the OPEB trust fund in place and to be able to put the money toward that trust fund every year. The employees of this town have been working with us as well in order to reduce the costs, because this solution is a twofold solution. One, you put money into the account that we can use to pay later, and the other side is to reduce our costs. And the employees have been doing that. So when I look around this room, I see a tremendous asset group that has helped make Andover who Andover is. And these are the people that have been working with the Board of Selectmen over the last 7 years in order to make this OPEB solution and our predicament better. I see a win-win opportunity here. We have the opportunity to make some changes within the next 12 months. We also have a great opportunity to put significant six-figure dollars into the OPEB trust fund. And we can take a look at these multiple plans that are out there. Mr. Flanagan's plan, I'm sure it's a good plan. Is it perfect? It may not be. I was happy to see the retirees come together, and they're putting some sweat equity into the process to think about it, to say, how can we help? Yes, they have a true interest in all of this, but that's who you want at the table. You want the true stakeholders at the table. So they have a plan. Is it perfect? Probably not. But by bringing the party, by taking steps forward, not adopting any particular plan tonight, but being able to take steps forward to increase the monies into the OPEB fund, reduce our expenses by making some of the changes, and bringing the parties together to have those discussions, we can come up with a much better solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Hi, I'm Bill Bilwakesh, been a resident of Andover for 36 years. And I've been here before, but the last time I was here, I think the podium was out there. So I don't show my back to the audience. It's kind of funny, I thought the podium was there. At least people won't see the fertile side of my head. The main thing, I have a few points to bring out. Number one, it looks like this thing has been festering and growing mold for the last 10, 15, 20, whatever number of years. I think Brian mentioned 7 years ago, we started some discussions, etc. All of a sudden, we are in a rush to get something finished. And March 31st, I think we had a meeting here, and we were convinced that there's going to be a lot of hearings, a lot of inputs, etc. And I understand from some of my retired colleagues here that Thursday evening at 4 o'clock, a plan was released, which is printed out and given here today. So that gives two working days, Friday and Monday, for the retirees who are looking at it to understand, comprehend what it is, and come up here. And then with this threat of a vote today, I don't see why this vote cannot be postponed. We have more thinking about it. There's what, 8 or 10 people here that stood and said, we're trying to look at it. We're trying to look at it. The town had the luxury of a top-notch lawyer, 2 or 3 top-notch CPAs who all worked on it, volunteer. But this group of retirees don't have the luxury of all those high-power people helping them. That's number one. Number two, these people worked for 30, 40 years. I saw somebody that said he worked for 44 years, somebody who said worked for 46 years. They came here, when they retired, they had an expectation, whether it is legally correct or not, they had an expectation that they would be on a 65-35. And all of a sudden we say, hey, there was a loophole. There was a small point in the contract which said, 5 of us can sit here and change it. We can change it. One day, boom, we give you a 2-day notice, we take a vote, and one day we change it. Now you live with it. I don't think that is fair. And Madam Chairwoman, Madam Chairwoman, you did say do not bring morals or ethics, etc. I repeat, I will not accuse any of you of lacking moral or ethical values. All I'm saying is I'm turning around to my colleagues here, my friends here. Is this what we are? We go ahead and ask people to work for us for 30, 40 years with an expectation that something is going to happen. They have a certain level, and all of a sudden one day we come and change it, and we say, hey, there was some little clause in some contract, so we change it. Is this what we are? Let me bring it from another viewpoint. If I understand this chart correct, there are 212 people that are now stuck with the responsibility of the mistakes that tens of thousands of people over the last 20 years have built up, the deficit. We are expecting these 212 people to take over the responsibility of near-term addressing the shortfall, what you want to put back into the OPEB, near-term. Let's take it, the town has, I'm going to assume the town has at least something like, 10,000 taxpayers. If we divide it into 10,000 people instead of the 210 people, they did not make the mistake. We made the mistake. I happen to have the luxury of a 3-legged stool in my retirement, a 401k, a pension, and a Social Security. Many of these people are sitting on a monopod. They have only one source of income in retirement, Social Security. That's it. And now we go and tell them, hey, we all collectively made a mistake, and we're going to ask you to pay the penalty for it. You 212 or 969, I think it's 212, if I understand it right. You guys pay the penalty for it, and you guys make up the shortfall. I don't think it is right. And I want to ask the audience here, I can't see you.
You need to direct your comments to the chair, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is this what we are as a town? I'm not telling you. I'm telling the audience because we, the audience, elected you, okay? I will 100% concede that you're doing what you legitimately feel is your duty and the right thing to do in your mind. However, as a town, 30,000 people or 35,000 people, I don't think it is right, and 35,000 people divided, added over 10, 20 years, that's about 500, 600,000 people have made the mistake. We cannot ask 212 people to do that. So with that, I also ask, that you shelve this voting, because once you take a vote, it doesn't matter, 3-2, 4-1, 5-0, once you take the vote, one of your members said, we can always go back and make amendments. Amendments are very hard. The vote stands very often. So let us not vote today. Give these people time. Some of these, I retired from a corporate job, so I have no issues. I'm looking at the people who are, my children's teachers are sitting behind me. How do I look them in the face? Hey, sorry, buddy. That's it. You know, we made a mistake, but you pay for it.
Thank you very
I don't
much.
think it's right.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank you for having me back, or not, even though you didn't invite me, but thank you for letting me speak again. Richard Irving, school social worker, 1978 to 2014. HIPAA regulations don't allow me to indicate whether anybody in this room was treated by me, or even whether there are any of my former patients in the room. Just again, as I want to reassure you, about a third of us will be dead before the 30-year time period is up. I'm 64. I also want to thank those board members who very clearly looked at each speaker as that speaker was talking. Most of you did that, and I certainly appreciate that. Very quickly, I just want to say, as a social worker who reads body language, that indicates those people who are looking are certainly open to listening. I ask you again, do not discard your covenant with those who've worked for this town. Everyone here worked for this town to make its schools and its structures and byways some of the best. The other thing I would like to make very clear, though, is that as contracts with town workers were negotiated, benefits have always been part of the discussion, negotiations and agreements, as someone said to me, or someone earlier said. It's one of the reasons why we have often taken no raises or very small raises, even when times were very flush here in this town. I do suggest, though, that if any or all of you vote to break those agreements, I predict that the next round of contract negotiations in the town will be based on the knowledge of what has been taken away and on a damaged trust that will be seen as being sullied by a board that might hurt the current retirees. And to keep it very brief, because you've been very patient with all of us, having the right to do something does not mean it is the right thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Irving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have two more speakers.
I see the microphone people didn't remember the lesson from last time and make it a removable mic. Sorry about that, back. Anyway, I'm here as a citizen of town, depending on the people who work for the town, and feeling a huge amount of emotion in this room, the type I've really never felt before. I feel we have this largely because we have a specific proposal before us that may advance, and it's just too bad it takes this kind of thing to get the kind of energy put forth. I really don't like that, but on the other hand, it's here. And on the one hand, I don't want to lose the opportunity to drive a stake in the ground, say time starts here. On the other hand, I'm not convinced that all possible solutions have been fully evaluated. So I just really have one question. I don't know who can answer it. It's allowed for me to ask a question, is it not?
Certainly, yes. Pose your question.
My question is this. Many assertions have been made with the certainty of a Supreme Court justice, and I'm sitting here wondering how valid those assertions are. And the particular one is the one last just made. If the motion is passed, then it becomes impossible to undo it. Doesn't seem to fly in the face of what Mr. Landry said about this is step one, and also our chair. This is one of many steps dealing with this problem. So tell me, please, if this motion were to be voted on and passed, what would be the next opportunity for input to be received and a revised proposal put forth?
I would say moving forward, and I have stated this, and our town manager stated it with the unfolding of his proposal, that it's the first step in our path towards a sustainable and responsible decision. And moving forward, we want to engage with, this week, if necessary, with all of the stakeholders, starting with the PEC. This is the first time tonight I heard that they would like to engage with us. And that's certainly something, excuse me please, that's certainly something that we can move forward with as we roll out this plan. It's not going to be the same in 4 years' time as it is now, Bill.
I'm sorry,
But it is a reasonable start.
I'd like a specific answer, if it's possible. If this passes, what process would be used before another vote could come up? How difficult is it really to change this if it's passed?
It's a vote of the board.
And those paths that are available for input are the normal ones, I presume?
All you have to do, Bill, I don't mean to interrupt you, is it's on our agenda, it's voted on.
Actually, this question is not for me. I know the paths. It's for people in the room who know them and don't use them, or don't know them. I don't know what. But since I can't look at them, I won't accuse anybody of anything. Here, I'll put my hood up to be sure. There. Is that better? His hood is handy. So can you please answer the question, what would it take? Would it take getting some items on the agenda for the board meetings?
It would simply take being on an agenda for a vote.
Thank you. I would think that we should move forward with this and be prepared at the next available meeting with more detailed proposals. I'm sure the board will be reasonable in listening to them if they haven't fully considered them already.
Thank you.
Those people who are laughing, I don't know who you are, but I suspect you're ones who haven't tried.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Eric Tykert, 30 years, Andover Fire Department. I'd just like to make a comment about the reference that you made to the PEC. We've been trying and struggling with these issues right along, and we've been ignored. We feel we've been ignored by the Board of Selectmen. One example of that is when we first gave you the proposal back on March 31st at this very hall, we just got notification today at 1 o'clock that it was rejected by the Selectmen. And I find it interesting that it took a month, 1 o'clock today, a month to find out that the answer was as such. So when you talk about, being transparent and working with us, I feel that's a little disingenuous.
Mr. Flanagan, would you like to?
Sure. Based on the discussion we had at the most recent
Thank you.
PEC meeting, I committed in response to the PEC to formally take it to the board in executive session for a formal vote. They did vote last Wednesday to reject the proposal as it was presented, but by no means waive their rights to future discussions with the PEC on how we can collaborate around some of these issues. We have a PEC meeting on Wednesday. I had every intention of informing the PEC then, but given that tonight we were having this important meeting, I felt it was necessary to formally notify the entire PEC this afternoon.
I can appreciate that, but I'm sure there was more than one executive session since March 31st. Is that correct?
No.
When you were formally given that. I'm looking at you, Madam Chair. Did you have more than one, or was that the only executive?
I'm looking at the town manager. I'm just looking.
We'll have to go back and look, but I don't know if we had.
Okay.
There's only one.
One thing I'd like to say is I grew up in this town.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
For probably the 5th time tonight, I would ask you to treat the individual at the podium with the same civility that you were accorded. And I think it's a shameful thing that I have to say this so many times tonight. We can all talk about this issue in a respectful manner, in a civil manner, and treat each other with respect. I think that's really important, and that's the Andover that I know and love. Thank you, Mr. Taggart.
Well, the Andover that I know and love, that I grew up in, is quite different than what I'm seeing tonight. And when I say that, I mean directed at what is the attack of the retirees. When I grew up in this town, we were taught to respect people, respect employees, and we weren't looking to punish them. Every one of you on the Board of Selectmen moved into this town late in life, and I commend you for the decision you made. You moved into a great community. It has great services. the schools, fire department, police department, DPW, the list goes on. You chose to move into this town because of what it is. And everybody behind me is the reason for what it is. They're the reason. So now what you're deciding to do now is to say the debt that's owed because of the town's refusal to pay the unfunded liability years ago, now we're deciding to put it on the retirees' backs. And that's phase one. I guess my question is, what would be phase two? Taking the lunch money from school kids? The most vulnerable group that we have. My mother now is gonna have to try to decide how to come up with another $1,500. She makes less than $18,000 a year. Now, when I talk to some selectmen, they bring up the notion that everybody's well overpaid, and I'm told about the exorbitant pensions that some have. Some may have that, but not the majority. The majority need what they have. And to put this unfair burden on their backs is just unconscionable. I just don't see how you can even sleep at night even considering what you're doing. The elderly, they have no way of making this up. And that's your first attack. That's first phase one. Now you commend his plan that he came up with. And you know what? It's a plan he had to come up with. He was directed to come up with one, and he came up with one. We gave you another plan earlier tonight that for the first year is better. It saves more money.
Your plan is a one-year plan.
It's a one-year plan. And then after that, and we've asked you to sit with us and meet with us and work on extending it and making it better. We put that together, just a group of us. Okay? I can only imagine what we can do if we put all our heads together.
We'll be
Instead
very
of
happy to meet
attacking the
with you.
retirees, okay, we can make it better. But I just see that if we put the vote off and we consider, you said here, March 31st, that you would look into all and listen to all options and review all options.
I said
Well,
here on
here's another
March-
one to look into.
Yes, on March
Okay.
31st, when the proposal was to bring all retirees
Ma'am,
to
I didn't interrupt you.
50.01%.
I didn't interrupt you. The proposal is for the first year. Now, when somebody talks about, well, we'll pass what we want to pass and amend it, no, it's the first year. We're looking to solve the first year, and then we'll work on it. We want to meet together. You suggested we've been meeting. We haven't. And that's all I ask. So I ask you to keep your word and look into all options and consider everybody behind me and the full impact, the humane impact. All these things are words that were spoken by this panel March 31st. Do you want to respond now, ma'am?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And I want to remind you that when we met here on March 31st in this auditorium, the proposal was to bring all retirees to 50.01%, which per state law can be done. I would not ever support something like that. We have come in 3 weeks to a point where we have the start of a plan which works for our overall problem. Next gentleman,
Well,
please.
it works for the overall town as long as it's on the retirees' backs.
It's the first step.
On the retirees' backs.
First step. Yeah, you already spoke, I believe.
Yes,
Please
I
keep
just
it
want to take no more
brief.
than a
Thank
minute,
you.
less than a minute.
Sure, thank you.
Just two suggestions. Number one, could you first take a vote not to vote tonight? Okay, that would be one suggestion. After hearing all these people, my colleague, my friends here, I didn't work in the Andover system, my friends here, it's very obvious that that is a very passionate issue not to vote tonight, number one. Number two, could you allow some 30 days, 45 days, whatever it takes for the retirees who stood here, give them the time to come up with any additional alternate proposal to rethink it. At the proposal 2.5, is there a way for the town, the entire town, to bear the responsibility for where we are. That is, the town pays through a tax, maybe 0.5%, 1/4%, whatever it is. Let us all pay for it, not stick 212 people with the entire burden. That's all.
Thank you. And just to answer your last question, we will involve all the stakeholders by the time we have a complete plan. Everyone will be involved. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Frank Licata. I live at 5 La Mancha Way. I've lived in this town for 40 years. I'm here tonight to try to give you a little input on what as a federal employee, I worked for 40 years, and I retired 10 years ago. 10 years ago, when I retired, my Blue Cross Blue Shield premium was $255 a month that I paid. 10 years later, I'm retired. My payment, I just got a notice, is $516 a month for me and my wife. That's a difference of $3,124.68 more I'm paying in my retirement. I'm a federal employee, retired. I worked 40 years. I'm out 10 years. I'm in my mid-70s. You people aren't alone in this problem. There are over 1 million people like me who have retired, who are faced with a premium increase of 100% in 10 years, 100%. I paid $3,069 in 2005. I'm paying $6,194 today, besides my Medicare A and B. So I'm just trying to say that you're not alone. No one likes to pay these increases, and I sympathize with all of you. And I personally want to tell the employees of this town, in the 40 years I was here, I raised 4 children, and the school department was excellent. You teachers did an outstanding job. I had a serious fire one time, electrical fire, that my house almost burnt down. The fire department saved it. I've had incidents where the police have come to my street and done outstanding work. You people from the town, no one's trying to say you did a bad job, you do a great job. No one likes to be in this position. The people on the stage and the 33,000 people that live in this town. But we're faced with a crisis. Just like I'm paying twice what I did. Everybody doesn't like increases, but they happen. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, Mike Morris, 11 Abbott Street in Andover. I had the privilege of serving as the chairman of the OPEB committee that's been brought up several times tonight. We started almost a year ago, and we quickly learned from each other that the great amount of respect that we had for Andover's employees, past, present, and future. And to tell you the truth, I've been sitting here for 2 hours almost, and my respect for those employees and the retirees has never been higher. I've listened carefully to everything that they've said, as I know you all have. Both groups tonight have expressed a willingness and a desire to talk this matter over and to continue to talk this matter over. That that actually, believe it or not, was one of the accomplishments, I think, if I can brag a little bit, but Tom and I can, that was to put this matter right on center stage for the town to deal with, which it had not been doing. So, in that report, we also made a very, very important recommendation, and that was to make the OPEB committee permanent, a permanent part of town government. I hasten to add, with me not serving as chairman, that we knew very quickly that this matter was not going to be solved in a year, or 2 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. We knew that the state had to be heard from. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a big role in this, and that sound you hear is silence. We know that there are many other issues that have to come out of our report. Government, it's been said, 300 years ago, I guess, is a contract between the living, the dead, and the unborn. That statement is never more true than when you're discussing OPEB. I do urge you to vote tonight to take this first step. But I also urge the town manager, at his earliest convenience, to appoint the permanent OPEB committee and to make sure that there are members of PEC, that there are retirees on there who can sit down and work this thing out. At our last meeting, I've got to add some of the comments here tonight that referred to politics, and I think even morals were brought up. My dad told me when someone mentions morals, reach for your wallet fast. I think that this group has to take on this matter as quickly as it can. We were not political. This isn't some crazy anti-government thing or anti-government worker thing. Everyone in our committee had a public employee as a relative. We have great respect for public employees, and we have to all show that respect by continuing the work that has been started by members on this stage, continued by us, and has to be continued into the future by the permanent OPEB committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Madam Chair, I'm Jimmy Katichia. I live at 127 Greenwood Road. Lived there my whole life, 58 years. As I've said before, my family's been here for 90 years. I'm a retired public employee, retired fire lieutenant. I'm a retired public employee and retired fire lieutenant.
Thanks, Jim.
For 34 years. I'd like to give you some facts, but before I start addressing that, my fellow public employee from the federal side of things suggested that over the last 10 years, he's had significant increases in his premiums. So have the employees of the town of Andover, to the same degree, to the exact same degree. So we are not immune to that. The town does not pay for our entire health insurance. We are in the same boat as everybody else out there in town relative to health insurance. This isn't an Andover problem. It's a national problem. There's no two ways about that. In relation to my good friend Mr. Morris's proposition in taking action tonight, we do suggest you take action tonight. And that was the plan that we presented a few minutes ago relative to dealing with this for the one-year term while we sat down as a committee, as people working together to come up with a long-term solution. I think that gives you that opportunity. Now to the facts. Some of the facts are this. Public employees don't get free pensions. I don't know if people realize that, but they pay 11% or upwards of 11% of their pay for their public pensions. A town hall worker that spends a career here pays in excess of 85% of his or her own pension. They are not free. We pay for our pensions. So don't misunderstand that. I would suggest to you that if a young man or a young woman joined the service of the town as Mr. Flanagan is doing now at 30 years old, and if he works here until he's 65, he will have paid for the majority of his pension. He will have paid for probably closer to 95% of his own pension in that 35 years. That isn't taken into consideration. The other thing that you have to take into consideration is the fact that the town does not pay Social Security. It currently pays approximately 4.5% of payroll towards retirement for its employees. Of that 4.5%, that is less than Social Security. So the savings in that delta, the savings between Social Security and the 4.5% that the town pays, amounts to approximately $500,000 a year on payroll every single year. The town employees are saving you money by being in the retirement system. They participate in helping the town provide the services that you provide in ways that aren't sometimes obvious. And there are many more things that are different than the private sector. I understand that it's difficult for people to see. They say a public employee, my God, he goes out and he gets 80% of his pay when he leaves. Well, they're paying for their pensions. This is not a free system. And I think people need to be made aware of that. They pay for their health insurance. They don't get their health insurance for free. And the reason that they get their health insurance through retirement are some of the things that I just mentioned relative to the disparity in Social Security. The other thing relative to Social Security, a public employee, if he doesn't work ever in the private sector, is not entitled to Social Security at all because the town does not pay. If he did work in the private sector by chance, his Social Security is adjusted by approximately 60%. It's reduced by 60%. So they get penalized. Even though they paid in, they get penalized by 60% for the privilege of working for the town. So those are all considerations. It is not just a health insurance issue. It's an issue that is much larger than that. It is an issue of morality. It is an issue of a promise that we made that we must keep. It is a promise that I, as a taxpayer, am willing to keep. And I ask that you keep that promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Selectman Salvia?
Yes, Madam Chair. Throughout all the speakers, I've been kind of making notes. You're probably watching me look down, and I'm writing furiously. I'm trying to, and Andrew and Ken, maybe you can help me out. But I think it's probably a good juncture right now to try to compare the town manager's proposal point for point with the retiree proposal point for point, because if you're asking us to do something, we should probably understand it best. So I mean, I took a little crack at it, but the similarities certainly are moving over 65 retirees to MedX. 65% would be the contribution under the town manager's plan for under 65, where there would be no percentage change, which is now 77 to 81%. Tell me if I'm wrong, by the way. 77 to 81% under the retiree proposal, so there's a significant difference there. Town manager's proposal has no contribution from the PEC, and the retiree proposal has the $357,000 going to OPEB, to the OPEB fund. Under both plans, plan design changes would be allowed, I guess this is all for the first year, correct? Because we're going to compare 1 year to 1 year. And in both plans, future contract negotiations with all of the town employees can take place. Do you see any other comparatives that am I missing anything?
No, I think you captured the year one differences quite well.
Right.
Any other comments from the board?
What would the knock-on value be of putting $50,000 into the OPEB fund this year as it turns out years to come? Would there be a appreciable benefit of that, or is it a swing at it?
I think the 357 in itself in 1 year wouldn't have a tremendous impact on the long-term unfunded liability. There would be something, but I don't think it would be material.
$1 million by 2032 is supposed to be accurate. $1.2 million if you put it straight.
Thank you.
My comments are, last meeting I made a comment that this is really a partnership. So one group can't solve this problem. The proposal that was brought forward this evening by, whether it was the PEC or a representative group of the retirees, was certainly a step in the right direction. And it was a far different proposal than was originally presented to us as a board. I'll say it's been very frustrating being on this side of the table. And it's very frustrating because there's very little that we as a board have control over. And this retiree contribution is something that we have control over. You know, other groups have control over other things as well. I'll cite back, I think it was about a year or so ago, our former town manager asked the retirement board to help us as a community and to change the benefits for future employees. And the response from the retirement board approximately 3 months later was no, we're not going to do that. The retirement board chose to not make any changes at that time. So I'll say I'm highly encouraged to see a group come forward and put a proposal like this in front of us, because this does need to be a partnership. I don't want to see draconian changes. And personally, when the town manager presented his proposal to me prior to the meeting, I sat back and I said, wow, this is a little bit more aggressive than I was even thinking. It really does concern me changing Managed Blue for seniors, the percentage contribution for those folks. Even though the plans are the same, we're pitting one group against another group. And I don't like to see that. What we really do need to do is we need to work together as a town, as employees, as a board, as the Board of Selectmen, as a retirement board, to work together to make changes. We need to make changes to current employees' percentages as well, because we can't just put this on the backs of the retirees. We've received many, many, many emails, some from retirees saying, don't change us, change current employees. You know, we've received emails that say, how can you change retirees? So my point is I think that this is a great step in the right direction. I think this board needs to consider the proposal brought forth by the representative group of the PEC. And I think we need to be extremely thoughtful when we make changes, even to medics, because going from, I think it was 80% or so to 65% for the group of people that represent our retirees is pretty significant. So I'd like to see us discuss this on our next agenda.
Certainly, no. We can have this on our next agenda. I already stated earlier that the board should
No, I mean, this is
discussions
a great proposal to hear.
to continue discussions with the PEC, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's that? I'm not going to make those motions.
Yes.
Brian Major, 11 Odyssey Way. Selectman Kowalski, did you just say that you received the town manager's proposal before you came here?
The town manager shared with me some of his thoughts on it.
Because traditionally, the board has held multiple hearings or readings prior to making any decision on a financial matter.
Yep, no decisions were made. The town manager shared with me his thoughts on what he was thinking about bringing to the board.
But if this is the first time that the board is seeing the town manager's proposal.
No, it's not.
It's not.
This
No,
was
it's not.
presented to the board on
No,
Wednesday.
we saw this at our last meeting. Right.
Okay, but generally,
And it's on the website.
there's two readings prior to putting a vote onto an agenda.
Is that a
yeah,
policy of this board?
This is the second time that we've been, that this proposal is on the agenda.
Right.
If I can, Madam Chair, I'd like to recognize and thank all the comments and emails that we've got. I also want to recognize the process this has gone through. I know to some who are new to this, it looks like it's something that's very new. But it was brought up, I think it was 6 years ago when we first all learned about OPEB and right away started funding a trust fund the first moment we talked about it. It didn't take more than a year or two to realize that that schedule really wasn't going to move the needle. And that money, when we tried to look at a program, looked like it was going to be millions and millions of dollars each year that really wasn't going to change the dynamic. As a tri-board, the tri-board got together and recognized that we need to put a group together. So there was a group of the tri-board that got together. That group came back with a presentation that said, you know, here's what we think the levers are right now, but there's a lot more that we need to do, and in a few months' time frame did not have the ability to do it. The recommendation was to put a separate committee together, which was the OPEB study committee, which was relayed upon today. That was put together with people that had nothing to do really with the boards. They were chaired by Chairman Morris and other folks, and they worked 8 or 9 months on this. In fact, I think some of us thought it was going to be sooner, realizing the amount of work that they had to do to take testimony, and they talked to, I don't know how many, 20, 30 people. They brought it up on the 31st. A tremendous amount of work, and everybody, I'm sure, has seen the report. I want to recognize that report. I also want to recognize Selectman Landry, who put a report together on his own. We had 2 reports, but we waited specifically for Chairman Morris's team and the OPEB committee team before we really did anything, and that was the volumes on that were very impressive, and the amount of work was impressive. And as Chairman O'Donoghue talked about, the recommendation was to go to the 51% or the 50%. I think there was concerns across the board on that. The compromise or the proposal that was put together by the town manager certainly takes into effect the folks over 65, which was a concern that was brought up by folks that talked to us, emails, and the board itself. So I think that I think it's a fair approach. It is a phase 1. It does give us the ability to keep the conversation going, but I do think we need to move on this to get this started. So, Madam Chair, I just want an appreciation for the process and where we are today.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would also like to say that this is probably one of the more difficult votes we will take as a board, because any one of us up here, none of us will ever will come out of this looking good no matter what we do, because there are people on both sides of this. It is a very important decision that we will be making, whether we make it tonight or at any time. Having said that, I believe that this is the first brick in a wall that will yet be built. And I firmly believe that, because I in no way looked at the town manager's plan and said, well, that's it, there it is, over 5 years. I would hope, or 4 years rather, I would strongly hope that within the first year, of his plan, if we were to approve it, that we would have significant mitigation in place, having worked with all of the various groups in town. My sense is that we are all ready to really look at this and look at this hard. This is a situation that obviously we can't let go for another 30 years and have $600 million plus liability. It's not something that's not even an option. The only option we have is to start going down that road. And unfortunately, in the beginning, it's going to take a little bit of courage to get down that road. In the first year, I firmly believe that if we take the first year of this plan, we can make significant headway. And I will make sure that we have it on many an agenda coming forward so that we can make significant headway so that this will not ever get to a full 4-year plan, will not look anything like its 4-year. If in fact we do have success negotiating with present and future employees, we do have success working with the retirement board, we do have success with our legislative, hopefully the state legislature comes up with some mitigation as well. If these things come into play, then there will be multiple discussions at the Board of Selectmen level that in the next little while we will be able to further mitigate and reduce contributions from retirees and or make the 37 years that's being proposed less. So there will be multiple proposals moving forward.
Yes, of course. Sorry, I didn't see you standing there. Sheila Doherty, 9 Juniper Road. I'm here with an opinion. I try very hard, and it's really hard not to express one. But I would ask you tonight to postpone this vote, and here's why. No, here's why. Here's why, please. We have seen tonight something I have never seen in my lifetime, and probably the lifetime before me in generations, of the PEC folks coming here to say, let's work this out. My fear is, and I know there seems to be a rush to vote, and I know you've been living and breathing this. I absolutely appreciate you have been living and breathing this for a number of years. But there's an opportunity, if the PEC representatives were serious, there is an opportunity for the town administration and the unions to sit down and maybe find one other solution. I have a real issue with putting this on the back of an 80-year-old former employee. That's my emotional comment. But I think the opportunity you have, but for maybe another 3 weeks prior to the July 1 effective date, to sit down in good faith with the PEC representatives and try to work it through. I'm not saying you have to do it, I'm just asking you to consider it. I think it's an opportunity we have not had in a long time. And to take this vote tonight, even though you can amend it, I think it's slapping in the face a good faith effort to come way off the mark of where they were a couple of years ago with not wanting to bend for anything. So I just ask you to consider that as you move forward in this vote. And please don't applaud me. Please don't hit me. Let me go home.
Sheila, I completely agree with you.
Thank you, Sheila. What's the will of the board?
Madam Chair, we have, and most of you sent those emails, but I don't know if we got 50, 60, 100 emails over the weekend. Multiple calls since our last meeting here. We've lived and breathed this for an awful long time. If we seem like we are rushing to judgment, I think I would ask that you understand that we have been living this almost 24/7 for the last several months. and for, as Brian Major said, for actually 7 years. I would love to be able to bring this to a vote tonight. I'm not sure that it would be politically prudent to do that. I think that there's a sense to me that if everyone is truly committed to working on solutions, that I'm willing to wait.
Madam Chair, I think, going back to how we opened this meeting, this plan the town manager's put together is the culmination of 2 years' worth of work. This room tonight, the retirees are very well represented, but this board has to represent the interests of all Andover residents and all Andover retirees. And as, excuse me.
Please, excuse me.
And I think, as we've said, this plan that has been put forward is something that we can move on as a baseline for reforming OPEB, and it doesn't preclude any other options that are put before this board. The board, it's the same 5 people here that can vote on this tonight and then can consider any other options that are thought out, vetted, and put forward to amend. And we can make it a priority to take that up. But I think it would be a mistake to delay the vote yet again after all this energy and time has been put into this when, quite frankly, it can, everyone understands this is a good first step and it can be amended. We can take into account if the PEC comes forward with a better vetted plan, we can certainly amend it. But to lose all this time and energy of a lot of people over 2 years, I think would be a waste of time. And nothing is precluded here. We can take this vote tonight. Town manager's plan is in place. The PEC plan, we can evaluate and then amend the plan. There is no reason that can't happen. This can be done in a 2-step process. But the continued delay, I think, is a mistake, and I think we owe it to all Andover residents to take action on this. I understand, we're hearing a kind of a disproportionate response in this audience tonight, but it's our job to think about all Andover residents. This issue of OPEB, as Mike Morris, the chair of the OPEB Advisory Committee, said, when we see that in the future that we can't hire police officers, can't hire teachers, the rising cost of OPEB, we cannot kick this can down the road any further. I think it's important that we vote on this tonight.
Let me say that in many ways, I absolutely agree with you. I think Andrew's plan is a superb plan. I really do. I think it has, not only is it a plan that is a great compromise from where we started originally with 49.9% contribution, or 50-50 as everybody says. I think we're way ahead of that. So I think it's a good plan. I think the plan phases in. It gives you a couple of years before you even hit 60% to explore many other possibilities and many other solutions. So I do love the idea. I love the plan. I think that it's structured well. Could it be better? Maybe it can. The emotion in the room to me is important, and I think that I'm going to recognize that, and I would like to hold off just for that reason. I will be. I believe, though, in my heart, that we should be moving forward and moving forward quickly. So what does that really mean for the future? It means that I will make sure that this item gets on agendas immediately going forward. So in one respect, I'm advocating, and we may not agree, but I'm advocating a slight delay. In another respect, I'm saying be prepared and put your seatbelts on, because we're going to do this quickly. Because I believe in my heart that this needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed immediately.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the town manager's plan. The motion's been drafted with the help of town council. It's actually 2 separate motions.
So I'll move the first of the two. I move based on the town manager's OPEB presentation dated April 20th, 2016, and pursuant to the authority vested in it by GL Chapter 32B 9E and City of Somerville versus Commonwealth Employment Relations Board 470 Mass 563, the year 2015, that the board vote to establish the premium contribution rate for all non-Medicare Part A eligible retirees under the age of 65 who are covered by the group health insurance plans offered by the town in accordance with the following schedule. Fiscal year 2017, July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2017, 35%. Fiscal year 18, July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, 40%. Fiscal year 2019, July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2019, 45%. Fiscal year 2020, July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, 49.99%.
Second that. We have a motion and a second. Any further comment before I call the vote?
My comment is, kind of echoes what Sheila Doherty said, is assuming the proposal from the PAC was legitimate and honest, and I believe it is, that I don't think we've seen this degree of, or desire to cooperate. And personally, I don't see a problem with waiting 2 weeks so that we can have that discussion with the PAC and hold off on this vote for 2 weeks. So I'll be voting against this motion.
I think the downside is little. I don't think there's a real downside. I think there's an upside to waiting. But again, moving it very quickly.
But you said 2 weeks, Dan. What do you expect? What is that? How do you usually 2 weeks when this has been going on for just months?
Want to repeat your question? Just want to repeat your question. People couldn't hear you, Alex.
Yeah, just you mentioned 2 weeks. Is that a number that you just came up with, or do you expect? How do you expect that to go?
No, you know, this isn't something that's going to get, you know.
I mean, it's taken us 2 years to get to this point. The OPEB committee took
Yep.
8+ months. You're talking 2 weeks. So I just
No, I'd like to sit with the PAC representation and hash out a deal that could work for. It could be a win-win situation for both parties. But I'd like to have it done within 2 weeks. I mean, I'm not proposing a prolonged discussion that's going to last months. I think it needs to happen in short order, and that's what my proposal would be.
And if I could, the approval of this town manager's plan tonight doesn't preclude that. In fact, what it does is it provides a safeguard that if for some reason those discussions don't go as they
If you wish to speak, you come to the podium. Thank you.
Approving the plan tonight is actually a safeguard. It provides the motive and incentive and timeline to say, let's get going and let's have this conversation with the PEC. So approving doesn't hurt anything. We can still approve. And if in a week or two the discussions with the PEC go sideways or it doesn't quite work out as we think, because we haven't seen it all kind of laid out and quantified, that at least we have the town manager's plan that has been approved and is in place. That becomes the new default. We can't have the default be no action. After all this work, we can't have the default be no plan, no action. So we'll be all highly motivated, won't we, in the next week or two, to talk to the PEC, listen to what they have to say, and see if it moves the needle forward.
Yeah. It's a matter of respect to me. It's a matter of respect to give the retirees the opportunity to have that open and honest dialogue, and to not do something with the proverbial gun against their head.
And I think having a vote in place actually de-incentivizes, is that a word? De-incentivizes forward, movement forward. It does exactly the opposite. So again, I'm not, believe me, I think this plan is terrific. I just want to.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Yeah.
If there was further comment, If there was
By the
further
board.
comment, though, you know,
Of course.
we don't just call a vote. If there's further comment, we should have it.
So we have a
Again,
motion on the
respect.
table, and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
Passes 3-2.
Madam Chair,
May I just
Madam Chair, the second Madam Chair, the second motion.
May I just request that the meeting minutes, D, please ensure the meeting minutes reflect Selectmen's Landry, Vespoli, and O'Donoghue voting in the affirmative, as that was not a roll call.
We can have a roll call.
We can have a roll call.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, roll call vote.
Yes.
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 No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, there's a Madam Chair, there's a second motion related to the approval of the town manager's plan. I move that based on the town manager's OPEB presentation dated April 20th, 2016, and pursuant to the authority vested in it by General Law 32B 9E and City of Somerville versus Commonwealth Employment Relations Board 470 Mass 563, 2015, that the board vote to establish the premium contribution rate at 35% for all Medicare Part A eligible retirees covered by the group health insurance plan offered by the town pursuant to General Ledger 32B 18A, such rate to be effective commencing July 1, 2016, and to remain in effect until and unless changed.
Just one statement, it's general law, GL.
Okay, I corrected, general law instead of GL.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Comments from the board? We have a motion and a second. Further comments from the board before I call the vote? Roll call vote. Selectman Landry?
Yes.
Vespoli?
Yes.
Yes. Dan?
No.
Paul?
No.
Passes 3-2.
Madam Chair.